The sketch was tattered, its edges curling like a secret trying to escape. In the soft glow of the community center's fluorescent lights, Lena Carter, 28, stared at the pencil lines on the page. A house with a sagging porch, a crooked mailbox, and a single cracked window that seemed to stare back. It was her childhood home, drawn with such haunting precision that her breath caught, tethering her to a past she'd spent years running from. Lena, a black woman with a fierce spirit and a heart too big for her own good, had built Haven House, a nonprofit in Seattle's Capitol Hill, to give queer youth a safe space to exist. Her days were filled with organizing art workshops, securing grants, and offering a shoulder to kids who'd been cast out by the world. But this sketch, handed to her by a quiet 16-year-old named Mateo, unraveled her carefully constructed armor. "Where did you see this house?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, her brown eyes searching his. Mateo, a lanky Hispanic teen with dark, soulful eyes and a guarded demeanor, shrugged, his oversized hoodie swallowing his frame. "Just somewhere I used to know," he mumbled, avoiding her gaze. His fingers fidgeted with the strap of his backpack, a nervous habit Lena had noticed in the weeks since he'd started coming to Haven House. She didn't press him, not yet. But the house in the sketch wasn't just any house. It was the one in Tacoma where she'd grown up, where her mother's laughter had once filled the rooms before addiction stole her away, where Lena had first realized she loved women and learned to hide it. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. The sketch lay on her bedside table, its details burned into her mind. She lived in a modest apartment above a coffee shop, the kind of place where the walls creaked with stories. As rain tapped against her window, she traced the drawing with her finger, wondering how Mateo, a kid she barely knew, could have captured her past so vividly. Was it coincidence or something more? Her gut told her it was the latter, and Lena had learned to trust her instincts. They'd kept her alive through foster care, through rejection, through the ache of building a life alone. The next morning, she found Mateo at Haven House, sketching in a corner of the art room. His pencil moved with a quiet intensity, creating worlds she couldn't yet decipher. "Hey," she said softly, sitting across from him. "Can we talk about the house?" His hand froze, and for a moment, she saw fear flicker in his eyes. "It's nothing," he said quickly, shoving the sketchbook into his bag. But Lena wasn't one to let things go. Not when they felt like this, like a thread pulling at the fabric of her life. Over the next few days, Lena watched Mateo closely. He was a regular now, showing up for art classes and the occasional group therapy session. But he kept his distance, his story locked away. She noticed the way he flinched when someone raised their voice, the way he always sat near the exit, ready to bolt. She recognized that look. It was the same one she'd worn at his age, navigating a world that didn't want her to be black, queer, or loud about either. But there was something else about Mateo, something that tugged at her heart. He wasn't just running from something. He was searching. One evening, after a long day of grant proposals, Lena found herself alone with Mateo in the community center's kitchen. He was washing dishes, a task he'd volunteered for without being asked. "You don't have to do that, you know," she said, leaning against the counter. He shrugged, his hands moving methodically through the soapy water. "Feels good to do something useful," he said, his voice soft but steady. Lena smiled, seeing a glimpse of the person he might become if given the chance. "Mateo," she said carefully, "that house you drew, it means something to me. It's where I grew up." His hands stilled, and he looked at her, his expression unreadable. "You don't know me," he said, almost a challenge. "Maybe I do," she replied, her voice gentle but firm. "Or maybe we're connected in ways we don't understand yet." That moment marked a shift. Mateo started opening up, bit by bit, sharing fragments of his life. A runaway from a small town in Oregon, a father who didn't accept his bisexuality, a mother who'd left when he was young. Lena listened, her heart aching with every word, because she knew that pain. She'd lived it, but the mystery of the sketch lingered, a puzzle she couldn't solve. Why that house? How did he know it? One afternoon, during an art workshop, Lena met Julian, a 30-year-old volunteer who'd recently started helping at Haven House. Julian, a Hispanic man with a warm smile and a knack for making the kids laugh, had a quiet strength that drew Lena in. He was an architect by trade, but his passion was community work, and his presence at the center felt like a gift. They bonded over late-night cleanups, sharing stories of their own journeys. Lena's as a queer black woman carving out a space in a world that often rejected her. Julian's as a gay man who'd found acceptance after years of struggle. Their connection deepened quickly, sparked by shared values and a mutual love for the kids they served. One evening, under the cherry blossoms in a nearby park, Julian took Lena's hand, his touch grounding her in a way she hadn't felt in years. "You're doing something incredible here," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You're giving these kids what we never had." Lena's eyes stung with tears, and she squeezed his hand, feeling the weight of her past and the hope of her future collide. But the sketch still haunted her. She showed it to Julian one night, explaining its significance. His brow furrowed as he studied it, his architect's eye-catching details she hadn't noticed, the angle of the roof, the texture of the bricks. "This isn't just a drawing," he said. "It's a memory." His words sent a chill through her. A memory, but whose? As weeks passed, Lena and Mateo grew closer. She became his mentor, his confidant, guiding him through the chaos of his teenage years. He started to trust her, sharing more about his life, but he still avoided questions about the sketch. Lena didn't push, but she couldn't let it go. She began digging into her own past, contacting old foster care records, searching for any connection to Mateo. What she found shook her to her core. A name, buried in a file from her childhood, that matched Mateo's last name, Ramirez. Her mother, before she'd spiraled into addiction, had been close to a family named Ramirez. Could Mateo be connected to them? Lena's mind raced with possibilities. Was he a cousin? A sibling she'd never known? The idea seemed impossible, but the sketch was too precise, too personal. She needed answers, but she also needed to protect Mateo, who was still so fragile, so afraid of being hurt again. One night, as a storm raged outside, Lena sat with Mateo in the community center's library, the sketch between them. "I need to know the truth," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. "Why did you draw this house?" Mateo's eyes filled with tears, and for the first time, he didn't look away. "Because it's where I lost everything," he whispered. Mateo's words hung in the air, heavy with a pain Lena recognized too well. The storm outside battered the windows of Haven House, but inside, the silence was deafening. She leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly, afraid to break the moment but desperate to understand. "What do you mean you lost everything?" she asked, her voice soft, coaxing. Mateo's gaze dropped to the sketch, his fingers tracing the lines of the house as if they could lead him back to a time before everything fell apart. "I was 8, he said, his voice barely audible. "We lived in that house for a few months, me, my dad, and my older sister, Sophia. It was temporary, a place we stayed after my mom left." He paused, swallowing hard. "Something bad happened there, something I can't forget." Lena's heart pounded. She wanted to reach out, to pull him into a hug, but she sensed he needed space to let the words spill. "You don't have to tell me everything," she said, "but I need to know how you know this house." "It's my house, Mateo. From when I was a kid." His eyes snapped to hers, wide with shock. "Your house?" he whispered. For a moment, they stared at each other, two souls caught in a web of shared history they couldn't yet untangle. Mateo shook his head, as if trying to shake off the weight of it all. I didn't know, he said. I swear, I didn't know. Lena took a deep breath, steadying herself. Let's figure this out together, okay? She said, her voice firm but kind. She reached for the sketch, pointing to the cracked window. This window, it was in my mom's room. She used to sit there, looking out when things got bad. Her voice cracked, memories flooding back. Her mother's laughter, her mother's tears, the way the house had felt alive and then, suddenly hollow. Mateo nodded slowly, his eyes distant. I remember that window, he said. Sophia used to say it was cursed. She'd joke about it, but I think she believed it. He stopped, his hands trembling. Sophia didn't make it out of that house. The words hit Lena like a punch. She leaned back, her mind racing. What happened to her? She asked, dreading the answer but needing to know. Mateo's voice was barely a whisper now. She was 17. She was like me. She liked girls and she didn't hide it. My dad, he couldn't handle it. He got angry, so angry. One night they fought and she left. She never came back. His voice broke, and tears spilled down his cheeks. They found her a week later. Overdose. Everyone said it was an accident, but I know she didn't want to live anymore. Lena's throat tightened, grief and anger swirling inside her. She reached out, placing a hand on Mateo's shoulder. And this time, he didn't pull away. I'm so sorry, she said, her voice thick with emotion. That's not your fault. None of it is. But Mateo wasn't done. The house, he said, his voice gaining strength. It's where I saw her last. It's where I started drawing to keep her with me. I didn't know it was your house, Lena. I draw it because it's all I have left. Lena's mind was a storm of questions, but one stood out. How had their lives intersected in that house? She thought of her mother, of the Ramirez family in her foster care records, of the years she'd spent trying to forget Tacoma. Mateo, she said carefully. What was your sister's full name? Sofia Maria Ramirez, he said, his voice steady now, as if saying her name gave him strength. Lena's breath caught. The name was familiar, not just from the records, but from a memory buried deep. Sophia, the girl who'd lived down the street, who'd been kind to Lena when no one else was, who'd disappeared one summer without a trace. Could it be the same Sophia? The pieces were starting to fit, but they were jagged, cutting into her heart. Over the next few weeks, Lena and Mateo grew inseparable. She helped him navigate his grief, sharing her own stories of loss, her mother's addiction, her years in foster care, her journey to self-acceptance as a queer woman. Mateo, in turn, started to open up, his sketches becoming brighter, less haunted. But the mystery of the house loomed over them, a shadow they couldn't escape. Julian became their anchor. He'd taken to spending more time at Haven House, his architect's precision a perfect complement to Lena's passion. He and Lena were falling for each other, their connection deepening with every shared moment. One night, as they locked up the center, Julian pulled Lena close, his lips brushing her forehead. You're carrying too much, he said softly. Let me help. Lena leaned into him, her heart full and heavy. I don't know what I'm uncovering, she admitted. But it's big, Julian. It's bigger than me. He held her tighter, his presence a promise that she wasn't alone. Together, Lena and Julian started digging deeper. They visited the Tacoma house, now abandoned, its sagging porch a ghost of Lena's childhood. Standing in the overgrown yard, Lena felt the weight of her past crash over her. Julian took her hand, grounding her, while Mateo lingered by the mailbox, sketching the house again, as if trying to capture its secrets. Back at Haven House, Lena pulled out her old foster care files, spreading them across the table. She found the Ramirez family listed as neighbors, but there was more. A social worker's note about a girl named Sophia, a runaway who'd never been found. Lena's heart sank. She showed the file to Mateo, who read it in silence, his face pale. "That's her," he said finally. "That's my sister." But there was another detail in the file, one that made Lena's blood run cold. Her mother had been questioned about Sophia's disappearance. The police had suspected foul play, but there'd been no evidence, no closure. Lena's mother had been spiraling then, lost to addiction. But could she have known something? Could she have been involved? Lena felt sick, the weight of the possibility crushing her. She looked at Mateo, his eyes filled with the same fear, the same need for answers. "We'll find the truth," she promised, her voice fierce despite the tremor in her heart. "For Sophia. For us." The truth was a ghost, slipping through Lena's fingers every time she thought she'd caught it. She sat in the community center's office, surrounded by stacks of old files, her eyes burning from hours of reading. The note about her mother's questioning in Sophia's disappearance was a splinter in her mind, impossible to ignore. Had her mother, broken as she was, been part of something unthinkable? Lena didn't want to believe it, but doubt had taken root, and it was growing. Mateo was struggling too. Since revealing Sophia's story, he'd grown quieter, his sketches darker. Lena watched him during art workshops, his pencil moving with a frantic energy, as if he could draw his way out of grief. She wanted to protect him, to shield him from whatever truth they might uncover. But she knew he needed closure as much as she did. They were bound by this house, by Sophia, by a past that refused to stay buried. Julian was her rock, his steady presence keeping her grounded. Their relationship had blossomed into something deep and real, a love built on shared purpose and quiet moments, like the time they danced in the community center's kitchen to a song playing faintly on the radio, laughing until they were breathless. But even Julian couldn't ease the weight of what Lena was uncovering. "What if my mom was involved?" she asked him one night, her voice barely audible. "What if I've been running from her truth my whole life?" Julian took her hands, his eyes steady. "You're not her," he said firmly. "Whatever happened, it doesn't define you. You're Lena Carter, the woman who built a home for kids like Mateo. You're enough." His words were a lifeline, but they couldn't erase the questions gnawing at her. Lena and Mateo decided to visit the Tacoma house again, this time with Julian. The drive was quiet, the air thick with unspoken fears. When they arrived, the house looked even more desolate, its paint peeling like old skin. Mateo stood frozen, staring at the cracked window. "She used to sit there," he said, his voice hollow. "She'd write in her journal, say it was her way of staying free." Lena's heart ached. She could almost see Sophia, a girl she barely remembered but felt connected to through Mateo's pain. She walked to the porch, her footsteps heavy, and noticed something glinting in the weeds. A rusted key, half buried in the dirt. She picked it up, her fingers trembling. "Mateo," she called, holding it out. "Do you recognize this?" He shook his head, but his eyes lingered on the key, as if it held a memory he couldn't reach. Julian examined it, his architect's mind noting its shape. "It's old," he said. "Maybe to a shed or a lockbox. Could be worth checking." Lena nodded, slipping the key into her pocket, a small piece of the puzzle that felt heavier than it should. Back in Seattle, Lena dove deeper into her research. She contacted a retired social worker who'd known her mother, a woman named Clara who now lived in a small apartment in Olympia. Clara was hesitant but agreed to meet. Over coffee, Lena showed her the sketch and the key, explaining Mateo's connection to Sophia. Clara's face paled. "I remember Sophia," she said. "Bright girl, full of fire. Her disappearance broke a lot of hearts." "Did my mom know anything?" Lena asked, her voice shaking. Clara sighed, her eyes distant. "Your mother was in a bad place then, Lena. Addiction had her in its grip. She was questioned because she'd been seen arguing with Sophia's father a few days before Sophia vanished. But there was no proof she was involved. Just rumors. Lena's stomach churned. Rumors weren't answers, but they were enough to deepen her doubt. She thanked Clara and left, her mind racing. That night, she and Julian sat on her apartment floor, surrounded by files and takeout containers. "What if we find something awful?" she asked, her voice small. Julian pulled her close, his warmth a shield against the storm in her heart. "Then we face it together," he said. "You, me, and Matteo. We're a team." The next day, Lena found Matteo in the art room, sketching the house again. This time, there was a figure in the window, a girl with long hair, her face blurred. "Is that Sophia?" Lena asked softly. Matteo nodded, his eyes wet. "I keep seeing her," he said, "like she's trying to tell me something." Lena sat beside him, her hand on his arm. "Maybe she is," she said. "Maybe she's guiding us to the truth." They decided to search the house one last time. Armed with flashlights and the rusted key, they returned to Tacoma, the air heavy with anticipation. The house felt alive, its creaks and groans like whispers of the past. In the backyard, they found a small shed, its lock rusted but intact. Lena's heart raced as she tried the key. It turned with a reluctant groan, and the door swung open. Inside, they found a dusty box, its lid sealed with tape. Matteo's hands shook as he opened it, revealing a journal with Sophia's name scrawled on the cover. Lena's breath caught. This was it, the piece of the puzzle they'd been chasing. They sat on the shed floor, the journal between them, and began to read. Sophia's words were a window into her soul. Her love for a girl named Mia, her father's rage, her dreams of escaping to a place where she could be herself. But the final entry was chilling. "I saw something I shouldn't have. Miss Carter was there at the house with my dad. They were hiding something. I'm scared." Lena's blood ran cold. Miss Carter, her mother. She looked at Matteo, his face pale, and knew they were standing on the edge of a truth that could break them both. The journal felt like a bomb in Lena's hands, its pages heavy with a truth she wasn't sure she could face. Sophia's words, "Miss Carter was there, hiding something," echoed in her mind, each syllable a blade cutting into her memories of her mother. She looked at Matteo, his eyes wide with fear and grief, and knew they couldn't stop now. They'd come too far. Julian, ever steady, placed a hand on Lena's shoulder. "We don't know what this means yet," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Let's take it one step at a time." His presence grounded her, a reminder that she wasn't alone in this unraveling. Matteo clutched the journal, his knuckles white. "She was scared," he whispered. "My sister was scared, and I didn't help her." Lena's heart broke for him. "You were a kid, Matteo," she said, her voice fierce with conviction. "You couldn't have known. But we're here now, and we're going to find out what happened. For Sophia." He nodded, tears streaming down his face, and Lena felt a surge of protectiveness. She'd built Haven House to save kids like Matteo, and she wouldn't let him drown in this pain. They took the journal back to Seattle, reading it late into the night at Lena's apartment. Sophia's entries painted a vivid picture of her final months. Her love for Mia, a girl from school, her father's violent disapproval, and cryptic mentions of late-night meetings at the house. One entry stood out. "Miss Carter gave Dad money, said it was for protection. I don't trust her." Lena's stomach twisted. Protection from what? Or whom? The next morning, Lena and Julian tracked down Mia, Sophia's girlfriend, who now lived in Portland. She was 30 now, a graphic designer with a quiet strength and eyes that carried the weight of loss. Over coffee, Mia confirmed Sophia's story. "She was terrified of her dad," Mia said, her voice steady but laced with pain. "He found out about us and lost it, threatened to send her away. And your mom Sophia said she saw her at the house one night with a man who wasn't her dad. They were arguing about money. Lena's mind reeled. Her mother had been deep in addiction then, desperate for cash to feed her habit. Had she gotten involved in something illegal? Something that cost Sophia her life? The thought made Lena feel sick, but she pushed forward, determined to uncover the truth. Back at Haven House, Mateo was struggling. The journal had reopened old wounds, and he'd started skipping art classes, retreating into himself. Lena found him one afternoon in the park, sitting under the cherry blossoms where she and Julian had shared their first real moment. "I keep thinking I could have saved her," Mateo said, his voice raw. "If I'd been braver, maybe she'd still be here." Lena sat beside him, the grass cool beneath her. "You can't carry that," she said softly. "Sophia loved you. She'd want you to live, to be happy, to be you." Mateo looked at her, his eyes searching. "How do you do it?" he asked. "How do you keep going after everything?" Lena smiled, though it hurt. "Because I found people who make it worth it," she said, thinking of Julian, of the kids at Haven House, of Mateo. "And because I decided I'm worth it too." He nodded, a small spark of hope in his eyes, and Lena knew they were in this together. Julian suggested they talk to the Tacoma police to see if any old case files could shed light on Sophia's death. They met with a detective named Harris, a gruff but kind man who remembered the case. "It was ruled an overdose," he said, pulling out a thin file. "No evidence of foul play, but there were rumors. Sophia's dad was mixed up with some bad people, drug runners, small time. Your mom, Lena, she was in that world too, back then." Lena's heart sank, but she pressed on. "Was there anything about a man? Someone my mom might have been with at the house?" Harris frowned, flipping through the file. "There was a mention of a guy, Ricky Alvarez. Low-level dealer, worked with Sophia's dad. He skipped town after Sophia died. Never found him." The name hit Lena like a shockwave. Ricky Alvarez, her mother's old boyfriend, the one who'd been around when things got bad. She remembered his cold eyes, the way he'd made her skin crawl. Could he have been the key to Sophia's disappearance? Lena shared the information with Mateo, who looked like he'd been punched. "I remember him," he said, his voice shaking. "He was at the house. Sophia hated him. They were close now, so close to the truth, but it felt like walking into a storm." Lena and Julian spent hours piecing together the journal, the police file, and their own memories. They found an old address for Ricky Alvarez in a neighboring town, long abandoned but worth checking. With Mateo's permission, they drove there, hoping for answers. The house was a rundown trailer, its windows boarded up. Inside, they found nothing but dust and empty beer cans, until Julian spotted a loose floorboard. Beneath it was a small metal box, locked but rusted. Using a crowbar from the car, they pried it open, revealing a stack of letters and a photo of Sophia, smiling with Mia. The letters were from Lena's mother to Ricky, pleading for forgiveness, mentioning a deal that went wrong and a girl who saw too much. Lena's hands shook as she read the words. Her mother had been involved in something illegal, something that Sophia had stumbled into. The guilt was crushing, but Julian's hand on her back kept her steady. "This isn't your fault," he said, his voice fierce. "You were a kid too." Mateo, reading over her shoulder, was silent, his face a mask of grief and anger. "She knew," he said finally. "Your mom knew what happened to Sophia." Lena nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Mateo took her hand, his grip tight. "It's not you," he said. "It's them." The letters were a map to a truth Lena hadn't wanted to face. But there was no turning back. Her mother, lost to addiction, had been entangled with Ricky Alvarez and Sophia's father in a drug deal gone wrong. Sophia, bright and defiant, had seen something she shouldn't have, a transaction, a betrayal, and it had cost her everything. The final letter, dated days after Sophia's death, was a confession. I didn't mean for her to get hurt. I just wanted to protect you, Ricky. Lena's heart shattered as she read it, the weight of her mother's choices crashing over her. She sat in the trailer, the letters scattered around her, and let the tears come. Julian held her, his arms a safe harbor, while Mateo stood by the door, his face a storm of emotions. She didn't deserve this, he said, his voice breaking. Sophia just wanted to be free. Lena nodded, wiping her eyes. Neither of you deserved this, she said. And we're going to make it right. They took the letters to Detective Harris, who promised to reopen the case. Ricky Alvarez was long gone, likely dead or hiding, but the evidence was enough to clear Sophia's name, to shift her death from an overdose to a homicide. It wasn't justice, not fully, but it was a start. Back at Haven House, Lena and Mateo worked through their grief together. She helped him channel his pain into his art, his sketches becoming a tribute to Sophia, vibrant, defiant, alive. Lena shared her own story, her mother's mistakes, and her journey to forgive without forgetting. We carry them with us, she told Mateo one day, as they hung his latest sketch in the community center. But we don't let them define us. Julian was there every step of the way, his love for Lena a quiet, steady force. One evening, under the cherry blossoms, he took her hand, his eyes shining. I'm proud of you, he said. You faced the truth, and you didn't break. Lena smiled, her heart full. I had you, she said, and Mateo, and Sophia's memory. They kissed, the world fading away, leaving only the warmth of their connection. Months later, Haven House hosted an art exhibit, showcasing Mateo's work. The centerpiece was a mural of the Tacoma house, transformed. Its windows whole, its porch alive with flowers, Sophia's silhouette in the doorway, smiling. Below it, a plaque read, "For Sophia, who taught us to love fiercely." The room was filled with kids, volunteers, and community members, all gathered to honor a girl they'd never met but whose story had changed them. Lena stood beside Mateo, her hand on his shoulder, as he spoke to the crowd. This place saved me, he said, his voice steady. Lena saved me, and Sophia, she's still here, in every line I draw. The room erupted in applause, and Lena felt tears prick her eyes. Not of grief, but of hope. That night, Lena and Julian walked through the park, the cherry blossoms glowing under the moonlight. What's next? Julian asked, his hand in hers. Lena smiled, the weight of her past lighter than it had ever been. We keep building, she said. For Mateo, for Sophia, for all of them. Julian pulled her close, and they stood together, two hearts bound by love and purpose, ready to face whatever came next. The truth had been devastating, but it had also set them free. Lena, Mateo, and Julian had uncovered a secret that broke their hearts but built something stronger. A family, forged not by blood but by resilience, love, and the courage to face the past. Haven House stood as a testament to that, a beacon for anyone who needed a home, a place where secrets could be uncovered and hearts could heal.